again tonight. We have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. Been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. We're excited tonight to bring you another interesting program. I have a young man in the studio today named Gregory Daniels. He flew all the way from New York to tell you about a story that happened to him. Hopefully, through his story, we can educate you about the criminal justice system. We can enlighten you about the real details that go on in the Harris County Criminal Courthouse. And we can empower you to participate in the criminal justice system by honoring your jury service and coming to jury duty, by being fair and impartial, by making sure that the system works fairly and properly. I have Mr. Greg Daniels in the studio, as I said. He was charged with aggravated kidnapping. I also have his attorney, Monique Sparks, who represented him throughout this process. So without further ado, we'll get right into Mr. Daniels' story. As you know, I like to talk a little bit about a person's background. I like to tell you who they are and where they came from and how they got from point A to the criminal justice system. And so with that, we have not practiced. Greg might be a little bit nervous, but he is eager to tell his story. And remember, this is a free speech show. We're not doing it to hurt anybody's feelings or to be ugly. We just want you to know how easy it is sometimes for you to get entangled into a web that's very difficult to get out of. So, Greg, thank you so much for agreeing to come down and tell your story about the mishaps and the misfortunes that you experienced in the Harris County Criminal Courthouse.
Oh, you're certainly welcome. Good evening. Thanks for having me. I guess I'm actually from Maryland, by the way, just to remind you.
Okay.
Flew from all the way from Maryland,
okay.
but no, it's definitely good to be here.
Okay. So tell us about your background. Tell me where you were born and where you grew up and where you graduated from high school.
Well, I was actually born in Hollywood, California, of all places. But when I was about 4, my parents ended up moving to the East Coast, to Maryland. So I was raised pretty much in Maryland all of my life. I only made it out to the West Coast, within the last 5 years. I ended up getting married and moving to California. But unfortunately, things don't always go as we planned, so it did end in divorce, and I ended up moving on, staying in California for a little while, and then eventually moving to Arizona for a very short period of time, and then back to Maryland. So I've been all over the place.
Okay. Well, tell us what happened to lead you to Harris County Criminal Justice System and aggravated kidnapping.
Well, and I think it was just regular kidnapping.
Okay.
They didn't give me the aggravated yet. No, but while I was in California, and again, I had mentioned, I was going through a pretty bad divorce. I ended up losing everything, as sometimes happens. I moved into a house. I rented a room in a house in San Marcos, California.
So is that more like a rooming house or a boarding house?
It was just a house where the homeowner just rents out rooms to other people. It was really low cost, something that I could have gotten into really quickly without, spending a lot of money at the time. So it was convenient, but, a lot of people sometimes would come through the house that were in one type of a situation or another. That's how I met my ex, who we'll be talking about today, was in that house.
And the ex that we'll be talking about today, do you want to say her name?
Oh, yes. Her name's Samantha Scheidler.
Okay.
And
so you met Samantha in this house where you're renting a room. Is she also renting a room there?
Yeah, she was also renting a room. I was there for about a month. This was, I would say, in June when I started to rent, and she came in July of 2009, I believe it was.
Okay. And then tell us what happened after that.
Yeah, we hit it off immediately because she was also going through a divorce. Actually, we were at the end stages. She was at the end stage. I was already divorced. But she, you know, was going through a lot at the time. And we bonded, you know, almost immediately on, you know, a lot of the common issues that people go through when they're going through a divorce. You know, there's a lot of pain, a lot of, you know, loneliness, you know, and, you know, we just clicked right away, just around that and other things. So, you know, it was very quick. You know, we got into a relationship a little bit too quickly, in retrospect, but, you know, they say hindsight is 20/20. So, you know, we got into a fast relationship, and within, let's say maybe 3 or 4, I would say 3 months, you know, we were just inseparable. She was pretty much like my right arm. You would never see one without the other. You know, people even in the grocery store would recognize, you know, me or her, and if I wasn't there with her, they'd be like, wait a minute, where's? So, you know, it was good in the beginning. It was very good, and it helped, you know, to kind of get through the process. I don't know if that was the healthiest way necessarily to do that. Maybe we all need some time to ourselves every once in a while, but it helped.
But with men, y'all rarely take time for yourselves, do you? You jump right into something else.
I'm telling you.
Women take time alone a lot, but not men. You have to substitute one love for another.
I'll admit, we have a lot to learn, I think, in that aspect. So I'm a man enough to admit it. So,
okay.
But I think, you know, in the beginning stages, it was pretty good. But there were some issues that I didn't really know about, and that's inherent, you know, obviously, when you do things a little bit too quickly. So sometimes, you know, you find out a little bit too late, and that's basically what happened in a nutshell, is I found out way too late about things that generally you kind of want to know before you get into a serious relationship. So, you know, moving forward, you know, she did get pregnant pretty quickly. I would say, I think it was in September when we found out of the same year. So we're still in '09 at this time. You know, and I was, you know, kind of shocked at the time because, you know, we were in a situation where, you know, there's protection used and things like that, and I was kind of really trying to figure out what had happened. And
so you really thought you were using protection?
Oh, well, we were, and it was a you know, surgical type of thing. So it was
surgical protection.
I didn't want to say it, but
for you, or
no, not me.
Okay, all right.
But
so,
no.
Right.
But yeah, it was the type of protection that generally is 99%. It's like 99%.
Wow.
So,
wow. So you weren't being
that
reckless.
that's
you
on her.
You were being responsible.
Correct. And on her part, you know, that was what she represented to me at the time, was that she had this protection implanted at the time. So, it turned out though that she had actually had it removed without my knowledge. She did it. She went and did it behind my back, and this was, you know, like maybe this wasn't even a month into the relationship.
Wow.
And I found out in September when she had gotten pregnant, because I was just really suspicious. I'm like, you know, how is it that, you know, with this device, which is so, like, successful, all of a sudden you know, something, right? Okay. So, you know, I went to all the doctor's appointments. You know, I became, like, really involved in spite of the fact that we were having this unexpected pregnancy. And I said, well, you know, you got to go with it. You know, you do what you have to do. And as time went on, you know, as we went, I realized, you know, that there were medical records that could be looked at and things like that. And eventually I convinced her to give me the packet of medical records. And in that packet, it showed the date, the time, and everything. And she went and snuck away and just had it taken out.
So what was her motivation? Did she tell you why she would remove her birth control? Since y'all were still starting over, so you didn't have a lot of money to make a baby, right, and y'all were committed to each other. You were engaged, weren't you? Eventually.
And eventually we were engaged, and that was I think that was in September, actually, when we became engaged as well. But those were all of the reasons that, you know, I said, you know, I was completely against it, against, you know, having any more children at that time. And so, But her motivation was, as it turns out, that, I mean, essentially that's what my purpose was. It was to
Be a sperm donor?
be a sperm donor, right?
Wow.
Incidentally, that's her nickname for her dad as well, for her dad. So that just kind of trickled on down. I think
her
that's
dad was a sperm donor.
He's a sperm donor. So that's, you know, the way that she views men, and that's the way, you know, that she was taught.
Does she have other children?
No, no, this is the only one. Okay. She did have one almost before,
okay.
but unfortunately, but that was before my time. So
okay, so y'all 3 months in find out you're at the beginning stages of pregnancy.
And again,
still happy, still in love.
Well, for several weeks there, when I found out about when I looked at the medical record and I found out that she had lied, you know, I had a lot of trouble reconciling I just didn't know what to do or what was going to happen, and eventually, you know, I just pulled myself together and I said, all right, well, let's just go ahead and do the right thing. And so we kind of patched things up, moved forward, made all these plans. You know, we were picking out names. We did everything, you know, that people would ordinarily do. And we kind of start to move towards December of 2009. This is getting towards the end, and we say, you know, let's go ahead and try to get our own place and, you know, try to move in together. Unfortunately, there's some other things that started to kind of pop up around that time. One of the things that also came out in the wash that I did not know about earlier was that when she had met me, she was actually still actively in a relationship with someone else at the time as well. And he didn't know about me, and I didn't know about him until he reached out to me. So
the guy reached out to you?
This guy reached out to me.
Wow, that sounds like what women do.
Facebook is a, let me
That's
tell
what
you.
women do. Oh, wow.
But this guy.
Go Sam.
Yeah, no, this guy, he called out and he said, you know, I just want to give you the heads up that you might want to really rethink who you're dealing with. And of course, at this time, it's too late because she's already pregnant.
She's pregnant and you're engaged and you're living together, right?
Right. Since, you know, now going on a couple of months. And basically, she had his credit cards and his bank account information because, unfortunately, he was incarcerated. I can't remember what for, but he was incarcerated on a military base. He was an ex-Marine, and he was to come out shortly, but, you know, she had still had his financial information and things like that. And it turned out that she was actually using his credit cards as well without authorization. He had gone through, apparently...
Well, this is what he's representing to you.
This is what he represented to me.
Because you don't really have any personal knowledge of that.
I didn't at the time.
If so, don't get into that right now.
No, I won't. I won't get into it.
But he represented to you that she was using his credit cards while he was incarcerated in a military prison.
That's correct. And actually, I did have personal knowledge. I just wasn't aware of it at the time. I didn't know that she was doing it at the time.
Okay.
But she actually did it in front of me. So.
Okay. Well, let's move on.
Well, yeah, moving forward, she, you know, all these things started coming out, and then I'm just like, man, who am I dealing with? And so eventually we move out. We move out of the house that we were renting. We moved into an apartment together, and we were only there until I would say April of 2010. And then in April, and she has this kind of, it's kind of weird because there's a relationship that she has with her parents that's, you know, on and off, and, you know, sometimes they're okay, sometimes it's just horrible. But in this case, you know, they told her, they said, well, we rather that you have the baby in Arizona. We don't want you to have the child in California. And, you know, eventually they pressured her, and it was week after week. They were like calling her and emailing her. It was, you know, harassing almost in nature. And eventually she just decided to just pick, you know, to just go. And they came from out of town, and this is once again in April of 2010. They came out of town and literally just showed up without notice. And they just, you know, they said, look, we're going to Arizona, and, you know, you're coming with us. Just pack up and let's go. And, you know, she was crying, and it was this whole scene, and she didn't want to do it, but she was like, all right, we'll figure something out, you know, let's just, you know, deal with it. And so she hopped in the van with them, and they just that day they just went to Arizona.
That's April of 2010.
This is April of 2010.
So she's about 7 months pregnant at the time?
Correct. And this is after, we've been, again, our relationship was at a high point. And so,
high meaning you're in
high
love,
meaning
we're together, we're a family,
right.
we're gonna roll as one.
And we're planning everything out. We got a name picked out. We have, just everything is pretty much in place. And so this is just like abrupt, and she just goes. And while they're headed to Arizona, she's texting me like secretly, like and she's telling me, I really don't want them to know that you're talking to me or that I'm talking to you right now because I don't know what they're going to do. And so, this went on for about a week. And then at the end of the week, she just said, you know what, forget it. There's too much going on. I can't deal with it. Just forget about me. Forget about the baby. Stay in California.
Forget about me and forget about the baby.
She literally said, like, in quotes, it's forget about us, forget about the baby. Just stay in California. We'll figure something out some other time.
So basically, she abandons you, or gives you permission to abandon her. But she's really abandoning you.
Right.
She's like a fella. I mean, that's what guys quit women.
A guy would look at that as a get out of jail free card. Like a lot of people said, well, hey, why not?
But you had things in your background that made you want to stay in touch. Although you're not talking about that to my viewers, he's had a situation with a child, so there's a reason why he wants to be close to his baby. Right,
and again, that speaks just to my divorce already, that I'd already gone through this separation and, had sacrificed, everything. Like everything just went the wrong way for me. So in this case, I was determined to, and not just for that reason, but because, this is my only daughter, she's a little girl, she's, even before she was born, I just knew that I had to be a part of her life, regardless of how she got here, regardless of the circumstances. And so, and that's kind of what enabled me to kind of look the other way when things, pop up that just really weren't quite right. I was just like determined to do whatever it took to make it work. And so when she did that, yeah, it really was abandonment, essentially. And she went, and I was just like shocked. I was just like, I don't know what to do. I feel like I probably lost like 10 pounds that week. I just stopped eating and everything.
Wow.
It really affected me badly. And so we go, she goes to Arizona. A week later, I actually decide, you know what, enough is enough. I'm going to come out here. As soon as she said, forget it, I was like, no, I'm not forgetting anything. So, I just pack up everything that I have. I pack it into my truck. I drive out to Arizona. I literally move. I just drive out there, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get here. I just know that I need to get a job. I need to get a place, and I need to make sure I have my rights to my child, because when she's born, she's not going to, I'm not going to allow anyone to come between my relationship with her, not even her mom. So, I go to Arizona. I'm just shunned. Like the family, nobody's talking to me. They even banned me from the hospital, that I can't actually come to the hospital and make sure that my child actually came into this earth safely. Nothing, just no contact. And what happened after that is really bizarre, because then, immediately the day she was born, which was April 13th, I had gone to court and I filed for paternity, custody, and parenting time, just the whole nine. And I remember the people in the court were just looking at me really crazy. They said, "No, wait a minute, it's usually the woman who's filing these, these papers. What are you doing here?" Like, the people were just, like, what's going on? And
so you filed paternity, what else?
Paternity, I filed actually for paternity, joint custody, and essentially that was it. Now, as a part of those orders, they usually rule on parenting time, how much time you can have, and try to work out the visitation and all that.
Did you get it? Because I want to try to get to the criminal case, and we've been into it 20 minutes, so let's try to move it forward.
So we'll move it forward quickly. So I did get that, and the judge, eventually what happened was her parents threw her out. They actually threw her out of the house.
With the baby they threw her out?
With the baby. They actually threw her out. They took back all the gifts that they gave the child, the clothes, the car seat, everything. Took everything, and they said, hey, you need to just go ahead and go back to him if you want, do what you want to do. And she called me. She said, just come and pick us up. And I did, and I took them in.
How old was the baby then?
Baby was she was only weeks old, just born. This was only May of 2010.
Okay. All right.
And, you know, I said, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to because now I can at least try to you know, have time with my child. So we eventually patched things up. She actually stipulated to all the orders, meaning she agreed, you know, voluntarily, you know, declared the paternity, everything that I wanted. No orders for parenting time, though. We were just equal. Everything was just equal, and no child support orders. So that established me. That gave me everything I needed to declare
to be the
that
legal
I'm
father.
the legal father. And they changed her last name. I forgot that part. Yes. So her last name is Daniels, for the record, not Schuyler. So. So then we jump forward. Now we go several months. Things start to kind of get better again. Unfortunately, the job that I had in Arizona, I got laid off, so we had to move to Maryland so I could get another job, because that was really the only place I knew that I could surely get one. So we moved back. I got a job working out of the home, so I was able to take care of the child. I was able to take care of her because she had surgery on her foot, and work at the same time. So. That worked from, I would say, June of 2010 all the way until December. And then in December, that's when everything hit the fan. You know, it got around the holidays, and yes, she does have the tendency to just shift suddenly from one frame of mind to another. It's almost, you know, bipolar, if you will. But, you know, she decided that, you know, she was going to go back to Texas, where her family had recently moved to, and take the child with her, and she was actively planning to do that without my knowledge again. So this will be the second disappearance, I mean the second abrupt, you know, movement. And I caught her because in the middle of the night I happened to get up, and this is in December of 2010, and I go to look at the laptop, and on the laptop are emails between her and her mom and someone else, a friend, saying, you know, okay, so I'm going to change the plane ticket over, and, you know, we're going to do Texas, and okay, and all right, we'll see you when you get here, and all that. And I was just like, and I didn't even get a chance to read the whole thing because she jumped up and snatched the laptop away, or tried to. And I wouldn't let her, and she was trying so hard to get that laptop away, and she actually, you know, started to assault me at that point. She was literally punching me and kicking me just to get this laptop away. And in the process, she actually knocked our child, who was actually on the bed at the time, onto the floor. So it was ugly, and I called the police like right away. And I said, you know, it's fine if it's me, if you're gonna, you know, that's fine, but the minute it begins to affect her, you know, our daughter, then it's no longer acceptable. So I just, you know, I called them, they came, nothing happened, you know, they said, they took statements, you know, and then they just said, well, okay, well, just cool it and don't call us again. And so they left, and then the next day came, and I had already had my suit ready. I was going to go to court and file my suit for a superior right to custody, for sole custody, just because of everything that had gone on up until that point. And I also had filed for a protective order, and it was granted based on the assault at the time. So as soon as I had gotten those orders, she fled. She disappeared and went straight to Texas. It took us about 2 weeks to find her. And I came to Texas with my orders. I registered them here. The police were far less than helpful, unfortunately. They decided, you know, okay, well, we'll try to serve her, but we're not going to do anything further than that. And mind you, the protective order gave me, you know, a superior right to custody at the time, and it ordered law enforcement to literally to seize our daughter and bring her back to me. And so when I came to town, everyone just said, nope, sorry. And this is the first contact I had with the district attorney that we'll talk about today as well. So,
so what did you do? Did you go to the police department, the Harris County District Attorney's Office? Did you go to all of those?
I went to every agency in the area. I went to the constable's office to try to, because they do the service here. I actually called the Family Criminal Law Division, which is how I got in contact with this particular DA. She claimed not to really know anything about the case, and she said, well, Mr. Daniels, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm like, well...
But how did it get to you having charges filed on you? Let's get to that part.
Now, getting to that, basically, after I didn't get any help, several months go by because, you know, my ex is hiding out. Eventually, we end up getting her served from my case in Maryland. Unfortunately, she had been in Texas for so long, by ducking and dodging all of these, the orders and the case in Maryland that I had against her and everything, that jurisdiction transferred over. It takes 6 months. And so at that point, we decided to change the jurisdiction to Texas for the custody case. I came to town as a result of a mediated settlement agreement that we had come to during mediation. And the terms of that agreement were that for 2 days, for the 17th and 18th of, I forgot what month that was, I think it was December of 2011, for the 17th and 18th, they were obligated to bring my daughter to me. So I finally got that, but nothing else at the time. And I allowed in exchange for that agreement for a friend of hers to watch the visit for those 2 days. Well, when they brought me my daughter, she had a bruise on her forehead. It was really large. It was unexplained. No one had an explanation for it. And, you know, mind you, I haven't seen her now on a year, in a year going on. And so they bring her to me, and she has this bruise. She has strep throat. She has a pink eye in both eyes, and she has an upper respiratory tract infection on top of it. And so all of that just didn't work for me. I said, no, there's something definitely going on here. So during the second visit, at the end of that visit, I decided, you know, the agreement had terminated. There was nothing else governing, you know, no more orders at the end of the visit. So I went ahead and took her, you know, for her own safety with me. And
so when you took her, what did the friend say or do? I mean, this is a supervised visit. What did the supervisor do?
Technically, well, the supervisor, she didn't do anything.
I mean, that's Samantha's friend, right?
It's her friend, and I just want to remind you, this is not court-ordered supervised visitation in the strictest sense that it superseded my joint custody to her. I still had joint custody.
Right. I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I'm just asking about the human emotion. Yeah. No. I think what you did was appropriate. If my daughter was messed up and we had joint custody, I would take her too. But I'm just asking you, from the human emotion, what did the friend do with you saying, okay, you brought her to me, but I'm taking her? So
she
what did
was
you
like
say?
a deer in the headlights. It's like she just didn't know what to say. She was just like literally dumbfounded. And you know, I told her, I said, you know, and it was quick, and I did it quickly for a reason, in that, you know, I wanted to avoid any traumatizing exchange, any physical conflict, anything that could possibly happen. I just said, you know, let's go. And I did. I took her, and, you know.
Now, does your daughter recognize you at this point, or has she forgotten you?
At this point, she did, and it was really emotional because I didn't expect her to. But, you know, and for the first 10 minutes of the first visit, you know, it seemed like she didn't. But by the time we got around to the second, to the end of the first visit, she began to say "dada," like she was saying "dada," and I was just like, oh wow, that's.
Now usually we take about 10 or 15 minutes to tell our story, and it's been 30. So you need to hurry up and get to the charges being filed.
So the charges were filed the next day.
Okay.
And ordinarily, of course, charges would be filed the same night. But we're going into the next day after I took her with me. And, of course, I was going to get her to the doctor and have her examined because I was really concerned about her condition. But the DA apparently that night decided not to, and this is another DA, decided to decline the charges according to what I was told by the police. It wasn't until the next day that the very same district attorney that I had talked to in the beginning, who said she knew nothing about this case, decided to file kidnapping charges. An Amber Alert went out, and of course, you know, an Amber Alert is ordinarily reserved for, you know, like the most serious of cases, and, you know, I'm just with my daughter.
But they knew where you were, didn't they?
No, technically they didn't know where I was, and what they were told by my ex is that I had no rights and I had never been adjudicated the father. I had no.
And that's the big thing is that I found interesting about your story is that your ex reported that you had no rights, you were not the father, when you were the baby's father from the beginning. And I guess it kind of troubles me, and one of the things I think troubled your lawyer, Ms. Sparks, is that there was no investigation done by the district attorney's office. They knew that you had called them 6 months before trying to, and gave them copies of your orders from Maryland and Arizona.
Correct.
So if they paid any attention, and they ignored you, but yet when she calls, all of a sudden there's an Amber Alert. And they have record that you've already given them copies of the orders, that you're the father, and that you have actual rights to the baby, and that she's basically hidden the baby. And she'd actually, if there was a kidnapping of your own kids, she'd done it.
She had.
Not that I believe anybody has kidnapped their own kids, and I think it should be dealt with in a family court and not a criminal court.
And I agree.
Because that's a misuse of our criminal court resources. But yet, you get charged with with kidnapping.
Correct.
So then you have to find a lawyer. You're basically destitute because you're moving from state to state trying to keep up with your baby.
Right.
And finding little odd and ends jobs.
And I'm paying more than one attorney at the same time, mind you, because I still have my Maryland attorney, and then I have now a Texas attorney on the family law side, and then now I have a criminal attorney on top of it. So, you know, financially, I mean,
how are you making money?
Forget it. Well, and actually, I was working for a department store as a manager through December of 2011. So, but eventually they said, you know, I understand you have issues, but you're, you know, flying back and forth to Texas every month, and we can't deal with it. So.
Wow. Well, you've been talking for a while. Let's bring Ms. Sparks in. Monique Sparks, you were his lawyer in the criminal case. Tell me about your experience getting involved in the case and how you approached defending him.
Well, in my initial involvement, I was just surprised on just how eager Greg was to have a relationship with his child. We usually don't see it from this side, from a father's perspective. And so I took a great interest in it. I'm like, this is a dad. All he wants to do is have a relationship with his child. And, you know, that's a problem. He was concerned that his child was sick, like any dad should be. And I just think that it was over-prosecuted. And so what we did is we just started collecting records. We got the orders from Maryland. We got the police phone calls that he called the police and talked to the DA's office that if he was committing a crime, he wouldn't have been involving the police and the DA's office.
And tell me about that. So when you say he was calling, tell me what agency was he calling, and how did you get those records?
Well, when he first found out that she took the child to Houston, he contacted HPD.
So he called 911?
Yes, he called 911.
So there was actually a 911 call?
There was a 911 call. He reported an emergency that his daughter had been taken away. He sent them the orders. He faxed it to HPD, and all this was reported through the dispatcher. And they told him that they were looking to it. They told him that they would contact the DA's office, and all this was reported within the 911 calls. Then he even called the DA's office. So and this is every day. You see 911 calls from the day she left. Every day after that, he kept calling, trying to follow up.
So when you became his lawyer, you were able to subpoena 911 calls and records. So when the district attorney's office charged him with kidnapping, they knew full well for 6 months that he had been calling 911, reporting, and had given them copies of the orders that he had joint custody of his child.
He was calling, trying to report her for kidnapping because she was in violation of the initial orders, right? He was trying to report a crime. But in the midst of him trying to report a crime, he was charged with the crime. And so all of that was recorded with the HPD 911 calls that he called. And I think at one point, even an HPD officer went out to the home and tried to get the child, but could not get the child. So the HPD tried to help. I won't say that they didn't do anything, but it's really hard when they get involved in these domestic relations with a whole nother state's order. They didn't know what to do. So I think that's why they referred it to the DA's office to step in and determine what was what.
Well, what I do like about it is that HPD did go out to Samantha's home. They tried to get involved in something domestic. She didn't let them in. They don't have a search warrant, so they really can't go any further.
Exactly.
But it is documented of the efforts that he made. And so from there, what else did you do in your investigation?
We got the 911 calls and we got the other orders. And we also got in touch with his family law attorney and got an opinion letter because the actions that he did it on the advice of counsel. He didn't just arbitrarily say he was going to take his daughter. He advised counsel about what he should do and which order was in place. And the order that was in place, according to his counsel, was the final order out of Arizona. Is that correct? Which gave him joint custody, which in their joint custody order, there was no fixed visitation. So that's what he went off of. So we got all of those orders and placed that in and prepared it for the grand jury to review.
Another thing that viewers need to know is there are two mistakes that you can rely on in the law. There's mistake of fact and there's mistake of law. Mistake of law has more power to it because that's when you're actually relying on a legal opinion. He knows he has joint custody orders. He's relied on a current lawyer telling him that you still have a right to your child, so you can go down there and make sure that she can't just take your child from the jurisdiction in which the orders are unless she gets the orders changed. And he's documented everything he's supposed to do to try to get with his kid, but yet when the baby's mother, I guess for lack of a better term, determines to report him, then all of a sudden all of the government forces are on her side. And I'm a little surprised about that because I could almost see the rush to judgment that the district attorney's office has to protect the child in society if they don't know anything. I am surprised that, and when Greg was telling me his story, I was like, man, that is so strange. I would just think that if he's documented all of those attempts to prove and has given them a copy of the order, I represent a lot of people, and they don't even have, they'll tell me this happened, that happened, but they never have the documentation to support it. For example, if I have a client that gets charged with having a prescription drug, I have a client now, it's taken me 6 months. I don't even know what pharmacy he went to try to get the prescription, let alone have a copy of it or him having the wherewithal to bring it to me. And you know how frustrating that is. So that's why I'm a little bit disappointed and surprised that they had already had it documented, so it almost seems like they charged him in bad faith. When he was telling me about it, I was like, I mean, is she of another race or something? Could there be some racial motivation? Because I was shocked about it. I'm like, I just can't see how you'd know for 6 months, and the DA's office has a copy of the orders, that you would do that. And when I asked him that, he said she was. And I don't mean to make it racial. I was just like, why would they do that? It doesn't make sense to me.
I just think for whatever reason, maybe because she is the mom, maybe because she got to the DA's office first and was able to tell her story.
She didn't. He got to them first.
No, I believe when she got here, she got to them first.
Actually,
she knew that Greg was going to fight for his child. So she contacted the DAs before coming here and talked to them first, and I guess made Greg out to be the bad guy.
So she called the DA's office before she moved to Houston? They had that documentation, and then now he's out of town calling the DA's office, but yet he does have the orders. We have a phone call, and it's 10 after 7. Caller, thank you for calling. Turn your volume down and please ask your question or make your comment.
Okay, I tried to dial. On your regular caller. I call you every week I get a chance to.
I miss you. How are you?
Yeah, I've been working late. I'm doing fine.
Okay, good.
And to Miss Sparks, you sure looking beautiful too. You look too young to be a lawyer.
She's my daughter, and she's my daughter that I had when I was 15, and she's about 15 too. We're geniuses.
y'all look like y'all about the same age.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You may look a little younger than her. And then, okay, and Mr. I forgot your name. James, your name James, right?
Greg Daniels.
Oh, Greg Daniels, okay. I just got one question for you. During the time before, y'all got engaged and before the baby was conceived, you didn't have any idea about, you just see some of that behavior, prior to, y'all going that far in a relationship?
Unfortunately, no. She was very good.
She was very good. When a man means that she's beautiful, she's kind, she's sexy.
At hiding, those kind of whatever it is that was going on with her, she hit it well, and I think a lot of.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Let me call and talk for a moment. What do you say, baby?
I was thinking maybe some of the signs were there. Maybe you just ignored the signs because you were probably blinded by the beauty or the sex, or whatever the benefit you were getting out of it.
Hey, benefit.
That's what I was going to say. I think we're a little blinded sometimes too, and I'll be the first one to admit it. So yeah, that was probably it. But
I'm a man just like you're a man. And, every time they put the camera on Miss Sparks' legs, and look at Miss King's beautiful face, I'm a man too. So I understand.
Wow.
All righty then.
Thank you. Thank you for calling in, and thank you for being a weekly caller.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, sweetheart. All right, so where do we leave off, Ms. Sparks?
I guess my rub with this case was that what this was the battle of the stories. Whoever got to the DA first, whether it was unsupported, that's who they stuck with, and that's who they supported throughout this whole case. Even when Greg tried to show him, no, it's not what she's saying, they never supported him as a citizen. And based on, I mean, even though he had proof and orders and all that stuff to support what he was saying, they never would listen to what he had to say.
And they even went so far as to tell me that when I came to town, this DA in question said that she knew nothing about the case.
So she lied to you.
She lied.
She lied to you. But let's give Ms. Sparks some time. So also on your grand jury packet now, I'm going to tell the viewers, a grand jury, all felonies have to be indicted within 90 days. So a lawyer that's been paid that is supposed to investigate a case as quickly as possible if they think there's no probable cause for the arrest. And this is clearly a case with no probable cause. And sometimes we do things, even if we're not paid enough, just because it's the right thing to do. And it takes about a year to get to trial in Harris County. But sometimes we can investigate quickly and try to at least get a grand jury packet together. And there are 12 grand jurors. And so we usually have to make 12 copies, plus a copy for the client, the DA. And that can be really costly, because I think this packet is about 65 pages. She put together documents, reports, 911 calls. And when the grand jury looks at it, hopefully as you know, defense lawyers cannot go into the grand jury. The DA goes in there and reads the police report, reads the priors if the defendant has one. He had no priors. And then they have a duty to present the grand jury packet that is presented by the defense lawyer who gives it to the DA. So in this case, Ms. Sparks has a packet that she's looking at. That's what she's reading from. One of the more interesting things I find about her packet, and I'm going to make sure we discuss this because it's almost 7:15, is that the DA in the case actually did something that's unethical by Texas rules, and she actually wrote the judge in the Circuit Court for Howard County Courthouse, which is in Elliott County, Maryland. And the judge wrote her back. And it says that, Ms. DA, my office received the letter you dated December 22nd, 2010. Various attachments have arrived with your letter. I read the first 2 paragraphs before it became apparent that the purpose of your letter was to communicate with me on behalf of Samantha Schneidler, and which at that time when I realized you were trying to communicate with me, I stopped reading and placed the document in a file under seal only to be given to the parties in the lawsuit. Please be advised that I consider your letter to be an ex parte communication with the court and improper. As such, it will not be considered by me. Ex parte means that you're trying to communicate with me, the judge, and trying to influence me. Lawyers have to talk together. Both sides have to have a lawyer, and the judge is the referee. One person's not supposed to talk about a case to the judge by themselves to try to unduly influence the judge's decision on some future communication. So both people, whenever you see in court sidebars, everybody approaches the court because the judge is the referee between the parties. So let me explain that. So he's saying that I consider this an ex parte communication, which is unethical, which is wrong and improper. As such, it will not be considered. Additionally, it is also improper for you to represent Ms. Schneidler in the above captioned case. This is in Maryland. This is the Maryland judge writing the DA to represent her in any capacity unless you are licensed to practice law in the state of Maryland or appearing pro hoc vici, which is an application you make to another state. So as a Texas lawyer, this DA would have to have applied to represent this one client this one time in Maryland and get it approved through the bar in Maryland. That's what that means. Or become licensed in Maryland. In closing, if Ms. Schneidler believes that the child would be in jeopardy if the child was returned to the state of Maryland, then she can seek remedies through appropriate court proceedings provided pursuant to the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act that is from state to state. And basically chided and spanked our DA for this unethical violation to try to communicate with the judge, which I found that very appalling. And I found it, I was shocked that a DA, Harris County DA, would write a judge in another county. How did you feel about that? You know, you haven't been a lawyer that long. We talk about ex parte communications. How did you feel about that?
Well, I just thought it went back to what my initial assumption was, that they went with her story.
But they took it really personally.
Right, and well, in family violence or child cases, they tend to. You know what I mean? They tend to take them personally. So
but so personally that you're going to violate your own ethical licensing for a child you don't know, and the child's not hurt, and they're actually joint orders. I mean, they're really, this father, this is a legitimate child where the father is just trying to keep up with their own child. I just find that to be, I find that to be people will do anything to win. Hold on just a moment. Caller, you're on.
Hello.
Hello.
Good show.
Thank you.
So the ex parte communication is a Brady violation, right?
Well, it would be, Brady means that there's something that tends to mitigate your blameworthiness. So I can't say that it's just an ethical violation on the prosecutor's part for trying to unduly influence a judge. What bothers me, as in Harris County, DAs always talk to judges when they shouldn't. We see that happen a lot, and they're not supposed to do it. And so that tells me that this prosecutor is so used to doing it that she thinks she can write a judge in Maryland and do it. It's wrong. A Brady violation is if, the problem with this case is that he didn't do anything wrong. You can't kidnap your own child that you have a right to see. You see what I'm saying? So it's hard to say it's Brady. If he kidnapped his cousin or somebody that he didn't have a right to be with, and they found out that there was a temporary order where he had custody of his cousin, and the DA hid it from his lawyer, Monique Sparks, and that would be a Brady violation, because even though he doesn't naturally have custody, someone might have signed over custody just for a summer or something, and they didn't show that actually happened. It was hidden. That might be more of a Brady violation. Does that help you?
If it wasn't technically a Brady violation, do you think it was a culture of a willingness to not share exculpatory evidence?
I can't talk about exculpatory evidence because what she did had nothing to do with exculpatory evidence. She has written a judge in Maryland because she didn't like the fact that there were joint orders. She's telling this judge, even though he had joint orders before this child ever came to Texas, I want you to cancel those joint orders because he's acting up here in Texas. I mean, she's basically trying to influence a process that she doesn't have any right to influence. She does. If you represent someone, you have to send to the court a letter of representation. So whoever represents the mom has to present to the court a letter of representation. So the judge is just saying, hey, this is just totally wrong. You're not the lady's lawyer. You haven't given a letter of representation. Why are you communicating with me? Who are you? Why are you? You're not a party to this lawsuit. Because in family court, remember, this is family court. She's trying to make him stop, change some orders, ex parte. He wouldn't even have the jurisdiction. He didn't even have the right to do that, because for a family judge to trigger his action, someone has to make a motion or a move or something has to be brought to him that's under the statute in family court in Maryland. It can't just be some letter that somebody wrote him. That could be anybody. That could be Samantha writing the letter. I mean, he doesn't know who this person is.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? They have to actually make an appearance, show a bar card, come with their client to court. So she's just stepping out of the bounds completely, because that's not even criminal. She's trying to make him change an order, rescind his family court order that they have joint custody, so that then she gets a new order that she can bring down, win a trial that Monique Sparks is about to set the case for trial. So she can say, well, I got a different order. Right. I mean, she's trying to, that's just crazy. Do you understand what I mean, caller?
No, it's pretty difficult. I thought it was a Brady violation before the letter to Maryland.
Okay, well, it's a complicated case because it's not a criminal case. That's what makes it difficult. Criminal cases are simple. You have an intent to deprive someone of their liberty against their will. That's what kidnapping is. This child has not been kidnapped. He hadn't deprived someone against their will. He hadn't stolen you from the corner or a child out the restroom. I mean, he hadn't done that. That's what kidnapping is. It's an intent to violate someone's right to be free and left alone. He hadn't done that. The baby didn't have a right to be free and left alone. There was orders that the baby can be with either parent.
It was a family court, DA?
No, the jurisdiction for him to have his baby was out of family court, but the Harris County DA is the one that's actually accepting charges for kidnapping when she knows that he has a right to have his baby. He has a court order that he can have his baby. So there's no crime. How can you go to court? If they went to trial, who's going to testify that he doesn't have a right to have his baby when he has a court order that says he has a right to have his baby?
Do you think he got caught up in the numbers game?
I have no idea.
That's been brought up before, actually.
Who is he? Because it's a she. The DA is a she.
Oh, yeah. It's,
No, did he get caught
Yeah,
up
he's
in the
asking if
numbers
I got caught
What's
up.
the numbers again?
I would assume that, you know, your DA has some numbers that that are looked at and maybe some type of a rate. I don't know, maybe.
I don't think
maybe
so.
not.
It's because we're trying to be polite and not call names.
Right.
But if we called her name and people knew who she was,
Right.
I think that I don't think she's caught up in number game. I think she believed what she was doing was right, but it just didn't respect your right to your child. It's just like her what she felt was right was superior. She felt was superior to the actual facts of the case. I don't think she looked at it objectively like we would want our DAs to do.
Right.
And also, I'd like to ask your guest, did he think he could, he felt that maybe Samantha was her name?
Right.
Bipolar. Did you think you could fix her?
Absolutely.
Or get around or
Absolutely.
Obviously, there was good in her. Did you think you could get around the bad?
I tried for a while. I really did. And again, when you're trying to make something work so hard, like I said earlier, I think sometimes we have the tendency to ignore the obvious, if you will. And
but when you were with her, you didn't think she was bipolar. Isn't that like a hindsight review? Or
no,
you thought it when you were
there were
together?
some signs towards you know, everything kind of breaking down, because, you know, she, like I said earlier, she would swing from one kind of extent or I don't know the word I'm looking for, to another.
Emotion? One
Yeah,
emotion
one
to
emotion to another, one extreme to another. And
Caller, do you have another question, or should I hang up? What do you think?
I guess a very interesting case. Thank you.
Please keep watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. We have another interesting case next Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30. Thank you.
I won't miss it.
Thank you.
And I just want to add one quick thing, just to be clear, that when the DA wrote that letter, my ex was actively evading the police and evading service. And this wasn't joint, it was not only joint custody at the time, but I actually had a superior right to my child because of the protective order that was in effect.
Right, in Maryland. I forgot. You had the protective order in Maryland, which gave you a superior right, and she was hiding and dodging receiving that service from the constables.
Correct. And in fact, when as you mentioned earlier, there was a 911 call where HPD did try to knock on the door and affect the service. But incidentally, the very same DA we're talking about, and I was present. I was actually in the back seat of the police car at the time.
Being arrested?
No, I was there just you know, they were helping me.
Oh, when they were helping you.
Right, because I had called them. You know how
Can
you
we
do
take
the
a quick call since we've been talking, and hold that thought for me? Thank you, caller, for calling. And what's your comment?
Hi, this is Miss Rogers calling. This is Victoria Rogers. I've called in your show several times before for different things, and
Yes,
I want to say to the young man you're talking to now that the lawyer knows she was wrong for what she done, and the luck of blessings that the judge seen what she was doing and stopped this car. Remember, God is always on the right-hand side. You know, on the left-hand side, right, people think he is all the time. And you keep the faith.
Well, thank you.
And it's going to work out, because I applaud you for a young man that wants his job.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
concerned about it. We've got too many fathers does not even care about their children.
That's for sure. They don't care about it, and so we applaud him and we support him. And
That's right.
And he was lucky that he found a lawyer that fought for him and put it together. And his case was dismissed. We'll talk about that. Thank you, Ms. Rogers, and please call back next Wednesday.
Okay, sweetheart. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I don't think we got to that part, so talk about how the case ended, because we have 5 minutes.
Well, we presented the packet, and I'm not sure if the case was no billed or what was the fact, but it ended up being dismissed. And, you know, Greg was cleared of any allegations of kidnapping to go on and fight for his rights in the family courthouse.
Since we have 5 minutes, say any final words that you have, and then I'll leave it with Greg, about your thoughts about this case.
I just think that what we all should do, and it's something that you pointed out, is make a paper trail of the things that we are doing. If you think you're in a sticky situation with somebody that's vindictive, leave a trail. You know, I mean, if it's take pictures of text messages, do what you can, because but for him laying this groundwork and having the paperwork, we don't know what would have happened to Greg Daniels. But because he left a paper trail showing that he was actively seeking, he got birth certificates, he went to court, he got these orders, he had the wherewithal to bring it to his lawyer. we were able to fight for him. So when you do anything and you think you're dealing with somebody that's vindictive, bipolar, we've said a lot of different things, make sure you have your paperwork to stand behind what position you're in, because as we see, it's easy to get a case or get charges brought against you because it's he say, she say, and it's whoever they believe at that time. So you have your paperwork to help your lawyer help them believe you.
Thank you, Ms. Sparks. You did a great job. I'm proud of you. I commend you in fighting for your client. I know he didn't have much money, and you probably wasn't completely compensated. So to still stick by him and not abandon him is like your Mama Bear taught you to be, fight, but sometimes you do need to get paid. But thank you for fighting for him. And so the right thing happens, and I know you'll be blessed in the end for it. So we have 4 minutes now. So Greg, tell the viewers what you want to talk about, what you learned from this experience, and how something that might help the next person.
This experience has really kind of lit a fire under my pants with regard to, and not just in this state, but, you know, where I'm from as well. You know, there's a lot that goes on in the justice system that I didn't know about until I really went through this experience, and it's really appalling, you know, some of the things that can happen. You know, there are people in, you know, powerful positions, and I don't think that necessarily this was a Brady violation, as we were kind of alluding to earlier, but I do feel as though this is a clear case of official oppression, if you will, and a case where someone who was in a position of power knew the facts. She knew months prior to this what the deal was, if you will. And yet, you know, she decided to take the action that she did, regardless of the ethics, regardless of the legality of it, whatever it may be. And if we live in a world where we can't, you know, trust the officials that are in charge to do the right thing and to do the ethical thing, you know, then that's pretty scary. And Ms. King has also inspired me as well. I've actually started a website where I blog or write articles weekly about some of the experiences and some of the things that I've actually learned in the hopes of really helping somebody else, you know, learn before you're in the middle of it. Because it's definitely better to know ahead of time rather than to find out, you know, when it's too late. So.
Well, we just have a couple of minutes more. I want to kind of recap what we've learned. It's very easy to get in trouble. It's hard to get out. You do need to interview lawyers when you do get in trouble. Don't just take the first lawyer that you find or the cheapest lawyer that you find. Find one that has a proven track record, that you can see that they've prepared grand jury packets for people, that they've won cases, gotten cases dismissed. Make sure that you vote and you participate in the process. We need to know what our district attorneys are doing. We need to know what our judges are doing. We need to know what our police officers are doing. In this case, the police officers did everything right. They tried to help him before it even got to the criminal courthouse. So we applaud HPD for that. But right now, we have a DA that's, you know, probably didn't do the right thing. And I'm very disappointed about it, but that's why I have this show. People call me every day crying about something that went wrong in the criminal justice system because they know I care. And I started this show because of that. I want to tell your stories. I want us to all be educated. I want us not to rush to judgment on any side of the fence, whether you're the defense, the prosecution. I want us to investigate. I want us to make sure that, you know, this young man's life was just about ruined because of this. And and this is a baby that was ruined. I mean, children have a right to know their parents, especially parents that love them. And because Samantha's now here with another man, or in another relationship, because that's really it. We haven't gotten into the nitty-gritty. She doesn't want the baby's daddy around him.
Right.
And so we can't use the criminal justice system to affect a child custody situation. So let's keep our eyes open. Let's support each other. Let's support a young man that's doing everything right to try to be in his baby's life, even though he has to fly back to Maryland tomorrow. But he's still trying to see his child. So anyway, thank you so much for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. I hope I've given you another interesting story. Remember to contact me at my office. The number will be on after the credits roll, because remember, I want to tell your story. Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories.